Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're cracking open a fascinating topic that honestly just doesn't get nearly enough attention. When we think of high intelligence, we usually just picture all those massive advantages, right? Acing tests, effortlessly solving complex problems, and basically having a brain that operates like this highly efficient supercomputer. But if we're being completely honest here, sometimes that supercomputer completely crashes just because someone asks it a really simple question, like, I don't know, what movie it wants to watch on Netflix tonight. Psychology actually reveals a completely different side of the story when it comes to gifted minds. High intelligence comes with a very distinct set of private difficulties. It's this hidden friction that most people never even notice from the outside. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly what those invisible struggles are, why they actually happen, and why having a highly capable mind can sometimes feel, well, incredibly heavy.
Because from the outside looking in, highly intelligent people generally seem entirely composed. They look naturally gifted, almost like they're navigating life on easy mode, right? Just breezing through challenges without even breaking a sweat. It's kind of like watching a swan glide across a lake. But internally, wow, it is a completely different story. Below the surface, they are paddling furiously. Their minds are this tangled web of loud, complicated friction, constantly creating challenges that others just don't fully comprehend. There is this massive gap between how effortless a high-functioning mind looks to a bystander and the very real, very intense chaos that person is actually experiencing inside their own head. We all tend to operate under this assumption that being smarter universally makes life better and easier, but the psychology we're exploring today completely shatters that. The truth is, intelligence doesn't just improve your life. Sometimes it actively complicates it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The high IQ illusion and the reality of a complicated mind. Which brings us to Section 2, the endless mental maze, where we really start overthinking our choices. See, when you have a high IQ, your brain is just wired to process the world differently, and that unique wiring brings along a very specific set of hurdles. There's one phrase that perfectly captures this first major struggle. Simple choices become mentally crowded. So why does this actually happen? Well, psychology links high intelligence with deeper processing and future simulation. Let's say you're just trying to pick a restaurant for dinner. While someone else might just think, hey, I want tacos, and immediately pick the closest spot, the high IQ mind absolutely does not do that. It automatically turns a simple craving into a highly complex algorithm. It starts calculating distance, current traffic patterns, average Yelp ratings, the exact probability of finding street parking, and whether the ambiance fits the precise mood of the evening. Because the brain is so highly capable, it automatically applies massive processing power to minor, everyday issues. So what should be a fast, super casual decision morphs into a deeply crowded mental space. And the thing is, when a basic choice is made, the process simply doesn't stop there. Immediately, that highly active brain scans for hidden consequences. It starts asking, wait, if we do X, what happens to Y? And that quickly leads to mapping out alternative scenarios, running endless little what-if simulations in the background. Before you know it, that straight line of thought turns into complete mental crowding. It literally constructs a labyrinth out of a tiny, insignificant choice. A small decision transforms into a mental maze filled with dozens of potential outcomes. So if you've ever felt completely paralyzed by a small choice, it's not that you can't decide. It's actually that you are actively evaluating 100 different variables that everyone else completely missed. Which brings us to another incredibly frustrating paradox for the highly intelligent: the sheer inability to just shut it all down. I mean, imagine it's 2 a.m. Your physical body is completely exhausted, you're tucked into bed, and you are so ready for sleep. But your mental state? Yeah, it's doing backflips. The thoughts are still moving, the analysis is still running, and the internal engine simply refuses to power down. Instead of resting, your brain decides that right now is the absolute perfect time to solve a 5-year-old argument you had in the shower. Or maybe, ponder the intricate possibilities of astrophysics. Psychology clearly links high cognitive activity with a severe difficulty in reaching mental stillness. Resting physically is easy enough, right? You just lie down. But resting mentally? For a high IQ individual, that is a monumental task. The off switch is just incredibly hard to find when your mind is perpetually sprinting. Moving on to Section 3, the curse of boredom, and why these minds are always craving complexity. So when faced with predictable, repetitive tasks, think your standard routines, basic data entry, or incredibly predictable conversations, the highly intelligent brain literally just disengage. It doesn't just find it boring, it actually finds it physically and mentally draining. Conversely, when a task is complex or highly novel, the brain is instantly engaged and actively craves it.
People so often mislabel this as laziness or a lack of discipline. You might actually see this at work, right? Someone might absolutely thrive when the company is literally on fire and they have to solve a massive high-stakes crisis. But that exact same person will seemingly lack the capability to fill out their routine weekly expense reports. Psychology shows us this is actually a neurological mismatch. Once a system is figured out and feels predictable, their interest drops off a cliff. Intelligent minds fundamentally crave novelty and complexity just to stay stimulated. It is not a character flaw at all, it's quite literally just how the hardware operates. Next up is Section 4, the social disconnect, and the weight of feeling misunderstood. You see, high intelligence doesn't just affect how you process tasks and decisions, it deeply impacts interpersonal relationships, often leading to what is known as a processing mismatch. Psychology suggests that abstract or layered thinking can create major communication gaps. Often, what feels incredibly obvious and crystal clear internally to a highly intelligent person can be painfully difficult to explain externally to someone else. I want you to imagine having a conversation and mentally skipping steps A, B, and C because you've already deduced that the conclusion is obviously step D. So when you speak, you jump straight to D, leaving literally everyone else in the room staring at you in complete confusion. If you've ever been called too intense or felt like you're speaking a slightly different language than everyone else, this processing mismatch is likely why. It is not about having poor communication skills. It is a fundamental mismatch between how your layered, lightning-fast mind works and how standard, linear conversations flow. And that leads to this incredibly profound, honestly kind of heartbreaking realization. You may have company without feeling deeply connected. Let that sink in for a second. Just being surrounded by people doesn't always remove loneliness. In fact, psychology shows that when someone feels mentally unmatched or chronically misunderstood, social connection can feel incredibly incomplete. It's not because highly intelligent people dislike others or think they're somehow better than everyone else. Not at all. It's because mental alignment matters immensely for true intimacy. When you are the smartest person in the room, but absolutely no one speaks your exact internal language, you can be standing in the middle of a crowded, loud party and still feel this profound, subtle, lingering isolation. Finally, let's look at Section 5, reframing the friction and seeing the whole picture. We really need to take all these insights from psychology and look at the broader picture here. Yes, absolutely, high intelligence is a massive, undeniable strength, but it is equally a source of very real, invisible friction. Let's just quickly recap those 5 struggles that live right behind that effortless facade. You've got overthinking simple choices and getting trapped in a crowded mental maze over a simple dinner reservation. Then there's that punishing boredom when faced with low-challenge, predictable routines, followed by constant misunderstanding due to a really frustrating processing mismatch in everyday conversations. Then, of course, the severe mental overstimulation and the sheer inability to switch off, even when you're physically exhausted. And finally, that subtle, lingering isolation, even when you are totally surrounded by others. These struggles are rarely visible to the outside world, but inside, the highly intelligent mind can be so much louder and heavier than people realize. So, what does this all mean for you? Which of these struggles do you actually relate to the most? Have you ever felt that invisible friction in your own life? Maybe agonizing over a minor decision? Or perhaps you've noticed it in someone close to you who just can't seem to turn their brain off. Take a moment to really reflect on your own mental wiring and recognize that the friction you feel isn't a flaw. It is simply a byproduct of a beautifully complex machine. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible, hidden complexities of the human mind.